Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the qualifying watch-along for the 2023 Australian Grand Prix. Great to see you guys here. Some of you here, amazed, honestly, to see some of you here already. Clearly, some of you have not slept or have stayed up to this ungodly hour for qualifying, or like me, you have not had much sleep and woke up at this awful hour. Qualifying coming up, obviously, in just under 1 hour's time. And I think qualifying is going to be very exciting. The reason is because after, say, the top 2 or 3 on the grid, it looks really close, to be honest, between all of the teams. But also, I'm currently watching the end of the F2 sprint race, and it is currently spitting with rain. And I think half the drivers have got dry tyres on, or most of the drivers have got dry tyres on, and then a load of others have got wet tyres on. So yeah, with obviously qualifying so close, it is really up in the air as to what is going to happen in qualifying coming up, like I said, just under 1 hour from now, because all of the rubber that was put down, say, in the morning sessions and the practice 3 session, obviously will have been washed away a bit. Not totally, because it hasn't been like properly raining like terribly. But yeah, it's going to make things pretty interesting for qualifying. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, of course, how that all plays out. And it hopefully, fingers crossed, will make for a very exciting session where we might get, you know, some drivers really having to fight their cars and really fight the elements maybe in qualifying. The chance of rain, I think, during the session is like 40% or something. It's something like that. So yeah, we'll see if that actually comes down, does affect the drivers in qualifying. Great to see all you guys here. Hopefully you're all doing well. One thing I just wanted to quickly ask is, could you guys in the chat please let me know whether the stream is working okay, and just put like yes it's okay in the chat or something, because on my streaming dashboard I'm not receiving playback for some reason, so I'm just wondering if the stream is actually working or not. Yeah, please let me know if it's okay and you can, you know, hear me and all of that. That would be great for my anxiety going forward for the rest of this stream. So yeah, please let me know in the live chat. And no matter what time it is in your part of the world and the time zone and where you're from, I hope you're all having as best a day as possible. Obviously, it's now April Fool's Day today. Who will be the fool in qualifying, I wonder? We'll find out very, very soon. And what we're going to be doing firstly, before we get to qualifying, is, of course, building up to the session itself. I'll get into the results of practice 3 in a moment. I'll get into my predictions for qualifying, which I gave in my qualifying preview last night. And then we'll go team by team, and I'll explain again, for anyone that wasn't around for my qualifying preview, what I believe will happen in the qualifying session here in Australia. And I am still sticking with the prediction I went with last night, despite what happened in practice 3. To be honest, the times in practice 3 don't seem to be, or not the times, but the positions of certain cars. It doesn't seem to be those representative sessions, to be honest, as I'll get into in a minute. But yeah, I am sticking with the prediction I went with last night. And I think I'll hide the timer and we'll get straight into the results of practice 3. And again, my predictions for qualifying. So, Max Verstappen topped the session with a 1:17.5. That is the quickest lap of the weekend so far. And is not only the quickest lap of the weekend so far, that lap time is actually quicker than pole position at this track last year. The pole position time from Charles Leclerc in 2022 was a 1:17.8. So, you know, to already, before qualifying, be going 0.3 of a second quicker is quite scary in terms of how much these cars have improved. And I did say yesterday that I believed pole position would be a mid to low 117. Yeah, scrap that. I think it's probably going to be a... Well, it's going to be a 1 minute 16. Maybe a mid 1 minute 16. Maybe even a low 1 minute 16, which of course would be an amazing lap record around this track. I know, of course, it's been made a lot quicker, but yeah, just amazing how quick these cars have become. Fernando Alonso was second, 10th and a half back. Ocon third, Russell fourth, Gasly fifth, and then Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Stroll, and Zhou. And yeah, looking at that top 10, like I said, I don't really think these positions are going to matter much when we actually get to qualifying. I don't think these positions are going to translate itself into qualifying at all, really. So yeah, that's why I don't think these are the most representative times. And yeah, for the rest of the field, you've got Nico Hülkenberg in P11, Albon 12th, Charles Leclerc 13th, and then Piastri, Bottas, Tsunoda, Sargent Magnussen, De Vries, and Lando Norris. So yeah, those are the results of practice 3. But like I said, I don't think a lot of these drivers, with the positions they ended up in or around in practice 3, I don't think that's really going to happen for a lot of them in qualifying itself. By the way, I am watching currently the end of the F2 race. I'll let you know if anything crazy happens. Dennis Hauger is leading the race from Jack Crawford, and Kush Miney is in third place. The home driver, Jack Doohan, has retired from the race, sadly. But at least there is still the feature race tomorrow for him. Not sure what his position is for the feature race, but yeah, we'll see how he gets on. Yeah, let me get into my full prediction for qualifying. So, Red Bull front row, I still think it will be. Ferrari are definitely going to be closer to the Red Bull team here in qualifying than I expected them to be coming into the weekend. But still, they won't be quick enough to make it a non-Red Bull front row. And yeah, Leclerc will be third, just behind Perez, with Carlos Sainz in fourth. Lewis Hamilton, I'm going to go in fifth. He's always been very quick here. And he will be followed up by Fernando Alonso. And by the way, Théo Pourchaire, I'm looking at, I think has retired from the race with some sort of suspension issue or something. Yes, some sort of issue. So Théo Pourchaire having another really poor race. And his F2 championship not going well at all, to be honest, as they're all on the final lap. And it looks as though the people who pitted for the wet tyres, yeah, their tyres haven't worked at all. But yeah, with Lewis Hamilton, I think he's always been very fast here, and he'll continue to be so today. Alonso, I'm going to go in 6th place with George Russell in P7. And then Ocon 8th, Gasly 9th, and Lando Norris has always been very quick here, at least in qualifying trim. I think we'll make it just about into Q3. McLaren definitely look better here, despite their poor pace in the first and second sector. Yeah, it's not looking great through those parts of the track, but in the final sector, the McLaren car does look pretty good. And then for the rest of the field, I'm going Magnussen P11, Hülkenberg 12th, Lance Stroll, yes, in 13th. As by the way, the race is finished for the F2, and yeah, Dennis Hauger has won the F2 race, sprint race in Australia. And it's Crawford 2nd, Miney 3rd, Arthur Leclerc 4th. Behrman has finished in 7th. And yeah, Martins and Boschung and Pourchaire, all of them have not scored points. So getting very close and exciting now in the F2 Championship. Anyway, yeah, the reason I got Stroll in 13th is for 2 reasons. One is because I don't think the Aston Martin is going to be that quick today. They're still lacking a lot of straight line speed, which is costing them a bit of time in the first 2 sectors. And Lance Stroll has never been, at least in qualifying, that quick around this track. So I think he will be a shock elimination in Q2. And then he'll be ahead of Albon in 14th, Piastri 15th. We have to remember Oscar has never raced here before, so I'm not going to put the pressure on him to be, right there with his teammate. It would be great if he could, because he would get a pretty good position for the race. But yeah, I think realistically speaking, that is not going to happen. And then the rest of the field, I think it'll be Sargent in 16th, Bottas 17th, Tsunoda 18th, Zhou 19th, and Nick De Vries in P20. Those are my predictions for qualifying. And let me just quickly get back on the screen that we have got 49 minutes to go. There you go, until qualifying does begin. And hopefully you guys are as excited as I am for what it's going to be. A very interesting session. Close, very close in certain parts of the field. I think definitely after the top 3, 4 of the grid, I think it's going to be very close between a lot of drivers and teams. And with the possibility of rain falling and the track not having a lot of rubber on it, definitely makes for an interesting session, no doubt. And Nib, who of course is normally my co-commentator for the race watch-alongs, he is at the Australian Grand Prix and has told me that it is very cold at the track, and the air temperature is like 14, 15 degrees Celsius, I think, maybe even lower. But the track temperature, considering as well qualifying will be starting local time at 4 p.m, it's going to be quite cold. So tyre temperature is going to be a big issue for some of the drivers out there. So it's going to be a very interesting session here in Melbourne. Just going to quickly, though, make sure absolutely that the stream is all okay. So just give me a second, guys. And just making sure the stream is working fine, and it is. So it's just my playback thing on my dashboard, which is just playing up, unfortunately. But yeah, for the next 45 minutes, we're going to get into a bit more detail with the teams as to who is going to do what in qualifying. Of course, I've given you my predictions, but I want to explain in a bit more detail as to why they'll end up in the positions I've got them finishing up in. Before I do, though, let me quickly just do a poll in chat. Instead of asking who you think will be on pole position, let me ask again, like I did last night, who do you think will qualify in third for the Australian Grand Prix? And the options will be Alonso, Leclerc, and instead of Sainz, like I put in, I think yesterday, I'll put Russell in with obviously Lewis Hamilton as well. And yeah, should still be a Red Bull front row, really. There you go. There is the poll in the chat, so make sure to vote in it. My prediction for third is Leclerc. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. What was I going to say? Yeah, Red Bull, they still should be on the front row. Again, the gap between them and the rest is definitely not as big as I expected it to be, at least in qualifying. But yeah, I think Red Bull are just definitely too quick for the rest of the field, and it will be a good fight with, Ferrari, Aston Martin, to a certain extent, Mercedes, as to who is going to be best of the rest. But let's get through the teams before we get into qualifying, starting with Red Bull Racing. Yeah, Red Bull, as we've seen this season, they've got the perfect balance with this car. They've got good top speed and brilliant amounts of downforce, and that's why they have the best car for this circuit, because it suits all of the sectors, all of the corners at this track, and they've got the balance perfectly right, not just this weekend, but with the car overall, and that's why they're going to win quite possibly every race in 2023, because they don't have a weakness. They absolutely do not have a weakness. Maybe you could say reliability, but Aston Martin and Ferrari aren't looking, that great on that front either, to be honest. So, yeah, Red Bull, they're going to be on the front row. Max Verstappen will definitely be ahead of Perez. Verstappen has been quite comfortably quicker than Perez this weekend. Not just by like a tenth or two, but, half a second or more this weekend. I don't think it'll be that big of a gap in qualifying. I think it will come down, but yeah, Max will still pretty comfortably be on pole position. Remember though, Max Verstappen has never been on pole position for the Australian Grand Prix. His best qualifying result here is second from last year, and obviously retired from second. If he did finish the race though, he would have finished in second because Leclerc and the Ferrari that weekend was just way too quick for the rest of the field. And yes, Sergio Perez just needs to focus really on out-qualifying the two Ferraris, because I don't think Aston Martin and Mercedes will be quite quick enough to be fighting for the top three on the grid. And yeah, if Perez can out-qualify definitely Leclerc, then I think second place will be his. And after that, if they do get the front row, then they should have a very easy race, because of course their race pace compared to Ferrari is a lot better. And if Ferrari do finish up third and fourth like I predict, then Ferrari will block some of the faster cars in the race from obviously coming near Red Bull. So Red Bull will then win comfortably tomorrow if they can get the front row lockout. And reminder guys, the weather for today is not, it's on a bit of a knife edge, let's say. But for tomorrow, it is not on a knife edge. It will be, I guess you could say hot and sunny. Maybe not hot for Australia, but it will be, definitely a lot warmer. And I think full sun pretty much tomorrow at the track. So, yeah, in those conditions, I think Red Bull will be just too good. And let's go on to the Ferrari team now. Yeah, they didn't look super quick in practice, but I thought Ferrari so far, in Friday practice rather, looked definitely a bit better than they normally do in Friday practice. And I think that's because their car is a bit better this weekend, at least in qualifying trim, than I expected it to be. And I think they will be the second best team. In the first two sectors, they're going to be too quick, are the Ferrari team, because their power unit obviously is very strong. The final sector, though, will be the difference really between them and Red Bull. That's where Red Bull will show their true superiority to the Ferrari team. And if only Ferrari, from an aero perspective, were as good compared to Red Bull as they were, this time last year, because if they were, then Ferrari would have a very, very legitimate chance of being on pole position today. But yeah, they're just lacking that key downforce in that final sector to really be fighting for pole position. But Charles Leclerc, if he can qualify in the top three, I think that'd be a good result. And hopefully, if he's got the pace to do that, and he does do that, Carlos Sainz can deliver a decent performance and end up just behind in fourth, because if they do qualify third and fourth, obviously then they won't be fighting with the Red Bulls in the race, because the Red Bulls will be too quick. And their eyes, Ferrari, will be on Mercedes and Aston Martin behind them. And around this track, which is still, despite these cars being easier to follow, it is still hard to overtake at the Albert Park circuit. They have, if they do qualify in third and fourth, a pretty decent chance of holding on to that type of position in the race. So yeah, really important for the Ferrari team. If they are to get their first podium of the season, very important that they really execute qualifying well and they get the most out of their car. Because if they don't and they end up, I don't know, 4th and 6th or 4th and 7th or some poor result like that, then I don't see a chance really of a podium. They've got to execute qualifying. That's their only chance this season of podiums, never mind race wins, is really getting qualifying right. And we'll see if they can, obviously, in 40 minutes' time. Charles Leclerc should be definitely quicker than Carlos Sainz. Carlos has been quick here in the past, but not like super, super quick. And yeah, Charles Leclerc obviously last year was the best driver in the field last year. He was just awesome. Obviously, the Ferrari car was the best car, but I think Leclerc really was on another planet compared to the rest of the field. We'll now go on to Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes do look to be a tad better than I expected coming into this Grand Prix. I thought they would be, in qualifying at least, the fourth best team. They look as though they're probably fighting for third best team, and I think they will be the third best team today. Lewis Hamilton, even though he's been behind Russell in practice 2 and practice 3, I don't think that will be the case in qualifying. Lewis, we know how godly he can be at this track. We saw, obviously, a few years ago from Mercedes just how amazing he can be, fighting, obviously, back then for pole position. And I think as long as the car stays balanced enough for him, I think he will be ahead of his teammate George Russell on the grid. And I think he'll qualify 5th on the grid. Like I said, Aston Martin, they, as I'll get onto in a moment, they are lacking some key straight line speed. Mercedes definitely doing better in that area. And obviously Lewis very quick around this track. Fernando also pretty quick around this track, but maybe not as quick as Hamilton over a single lap here at Albert Park. So yeah, Hamilton will come out on top in that fight. And if Mercedes can get 5th and 7th or 5th and 6th or something like that, I'd say at that point they've got a decent chance of a podium. Even if Alonso is ahead of them on the grid, I still think they've got a decent chance because, like I said, from what I've seen so far this weekend, they are definitely a tad better than I expected. They're still not good. They're still quite a bit away from that, but they are definitely a bit better than expected. Kind of like we saw in Saudi Arabia, where they looked, they're just a tad better than I expected there. Because in Saudi Arabia, I thought they would be pretty comfortably 4th best team, but yeah, they ended up obviously a bit better than that. And the final front-running team we'll go on to is Aston Martin. And yeah, the issues for Aston Martin today are going to be the straight line speed that they are lacking. Mercedes power unit, obviously, not as strong as the Ferrari or the Honda, you could call it. And yeah, that's why they're just clearly lacking in those first 2 sectors compared to Ferrari and the Red Bull team. And realistically, as long as their front could do clean laps in qualifying, if Aston Martin with Alonso can be ahead of the 2 Mercedes on the grid, then I think realistically that is a good result. Because, yeah, I think Ferrari are going to be just a little too quick for them in qualifying today, as we've seen so far in the first 2 races of the season, where Ferrari were just a little too quick for Aston Martin. Obviously turned around big time in the race, and it probably will this weekend to a certain extent. But yeah, today in qualifying, I think Aston Martin will just lack that straight line speed to really put them on par with the Ferrari team. And because Alonso, is very quick around this track, there is no doubt about it. Because he also, though, is still not, at his absolute peak when it comes to qualifying, it's gonna be difficult for him to get probably the absolute maximum out of the car, especially when you've got drivers out there like Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, drivers like that who obviously over a single lap are very, very quick. So yeah, just think Fernando in the end will finish up in 6th place. That's not a bad position. I mean, I still think he'll probably improve on that in the race, but yeah, I don't see Aston Martin have a great day today. And as I explained earlier with Lance Stroll, I think Stroll will get knocked out in Q2 because the Aston Martin obviously a bit slower this weekend than I thought they would be. I know obviously Alonso was 2nd in practice 3, but I don't think we can read too much into the lap times of practice 3, to be honest. And yeah, Lance has been quite a bit slower than Fernando this weekend. So Fernando does qualify 5th or 6th. Lance is either going to be in Q3, but in like 9th or 10th place, or he is going to be, outside the top 10. And my prediction is Lance Stroll will be qualifying in 13th position. And at least that should make for an interesting Grand Prix tomorrow, watching him come through the field. But yeah, Aston Martin, not going to be super quick today. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I don't think they're going to be super quick today. But if they can get Alonso, say, 4th or 5th on the grid, and Lance Stroll get him to, say, 8th place on the grid, then I think that would be a pretty good effort for them, and it would set them up for still a pretty good race tomorrow, even if it is pretty hard to overtake. But let me know, guys, in the chat, who do you think will be on pole position, of course, but for the top 4 teams, who do you think will shine and maybe not shine as much? And what teams do you think will be coming out on top in that battle? And now we'll go on to the midfield teams more so. Alpine next. Alpine look good, but not... I still don't think they're going to be on the level of Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes. I'd be very surprised if that was the case from the Alpine team. I don't think they've got quite enough of a car around this type of track at the minute to really be fighting with those teams. And I think they will drop back, and I think they'll get both cars into the top 10. And like my prediction said, 8th and 9th, I think it'll be for them on the grid, which is still a good result for them. But it won't be, I don't see Alpine having a car in the top 6 or anything like that. I think that would be pretty insane if that was to happen. Maybe it will, maybe I'll be proved wrong. I hope I am, but yeah, that'd be pretty insane if it was to happen. And yeah, Ocon, I think, will be ahead of Gasly. He was obviously ahead of Gasly in practice 3, but I think Esteban is a better driver around this circuit than what we've seen from Pierre. Pierre has had decent pace here in the past, but nothing maybe as consistently good as what Esteban has shown us in the past here. One thought, though, and you guys can let me know in the chat or the comment section whether you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. I was having a thought with Alpine. I think this was after my stream, because with the Alpine car, they're definitely closer to Mercedes and Ferrari. There is no doubt about that. Since the end of last season, Alpine have closed the gap to Mercedes and Ferrari by a bit of time. They are at least half a second closer to the Ferrari team, and probably 2 or 3 tenths of a second closer to Mercedes. So what they've done over the winter has been good. They have made progression. It just hasn't been, we haven't seen maybe great evidence of that because of Aston Martin's progress. But the point I'm trying to make is, because they've lost Fernando Alonso, I don't feel as though this Alpine car is quite, or is I don't feel as though the car and its potential is being shown as much as it would be if you had a driver like Fernando still in that car. No disrespect to Ocon and Gasly, they're both good drivers. There's no doubt about that. Esteban Ocon is probably back end of the top 10, but I would say he is one of, at the minute, the top 10 best drivers in Formula 1. But I don't feel as though these two drivers are necessarily getting the best out of the car. Certainly as much as what Fernando Alonso was doing last year. And if you were to put a, obviously a Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris, even Russell into this Alpine car, I do feel as though they would find more lap time in this car. And at the end of the day with Ocon and Gasly, they're both good drivers, but they are both midfield drivers, really. And they're not really front-running type drivers. And I think that's what Alpine are missing this season, because I think if they had Alonso in this car, let's say Vettel decided not to retire, and Alonso stayed at Alpine, Vettel racing Aston Martin would still be quicker, but I feel as though Alpine would be closer, even closer, to Ferrari and Mercedes than they are already when they've clearly closed the gap, because Fernando would be getting the absolute maximum out of the car. When with Ocon and Gasly, I'm not necessarily sure they are getting the maximum out of the car and are truly showing the potential of the Alpine car. So the point I'm trying to make is this Alpine car it's a good car. It's not a great car. It's not a front-running, like proper front-running car necessarily, but it is a bit better than what has been shown so far. They're definitely not that far away from teams like Ferrari and Mercedes. There is no doubt about it. And even Aston Martin, they are really not that far away from teams like that. I mean, obviously, they keep making improvements this season. They can keep closing that gap. But I think really what Alpine need, and again, I'm not trying to disrespect Ocon or Gasly here. I think they're both very good drivers. But really, they need to be trying to get someone who could be or is a front-running driver into this team. Because I do feel as though, again, there is more potential in this car than what is being shown. And I feel as though they could maybe get into the mix with Mercedes and Ferrari if they had, say, a Russell or a Norris or a Alonso or a Leclerc type quality driver in that car. Looking at the field at the minute, I mean, it's pretty hard for them to find one. I mean, obviously, McLaren are in a worse position at the minute, and you've got Lando Norris at McLaren, but I don't think Norris necessarily would want to move to Alpine because it wouldn't be exactly a much better move for him. And then you look for the rest of the field. I mean, you've got drivers like Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Albon, Tsunoda, De Vries, Bottas, Zhou. None of those drivers would really, I think, get the absolute maximum out of this car either. And I think the big issue with the driver lineup with Alpine really, goes back and stems back to the Piastri saga. Because if they had Oscar Piastri in this Alpine car, a driver, by the way, who I think could legitimately be on that, say, Norris, Russell level of being a front-running driver, Oscar Piastri is very quick. And, if you've seen what he's done in Junior Formula, he is an incredibly talented driver. If they had Oscar in that car, maybe they would be seeing a bit more come out of the car, is what I'm trying to say. Let me know, what you think of what I've had to say there, because I think I am onto something there. And what do you call it? I think with Alpine, like I said, if they had a front-running driver in that car, I do feel as though they would be probably a bit closer to, say, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes. That's just my feeling. I guess we'll see in qualifying today how close they can really get. Rest of the midfield teams, McLaren, Oscar Piastri on screen. Hopefully he has a good first qualifying session in Melbourne. McLaren look pretty decent. I think they get both cars into Q2 for sure. Obviously, so far this season, they've had one car eliminated in Q1 in both of the first two races. I don't think they'll be quite that bad. But things are looking good. Lando Norris looks really quick. Just to say that, this picture comes up on screen of Lando off the track. But yeah, he has been very quick this weekend, Lando. I know in practice 3 he wasn't necessarily, but on Friday, Lando was pretty fast. And in that final sector, like I was saying yesterday, that McLaren car is super quick. And it's definitely this 2023 McLaren car. It is not as bad as people make it out to be. I mean, yeah, it's got its issues. It's very draggy. It's very slow in a straight line. But if they can cut a lot of that drag off with these new upgrades coming very soon, at the end of this month at the Baku Grand Prix in Azerbaijan, McLaren, they'll be right there with Alpine. They absolutely will. Because in terms of pure downforce, I think they've got a car that can absolutely fight with Alpine and maybe even be better than Alpine. So yeah, McLaren, like I said, their car is not as bad as you think, and I think they'll show that a bit today. And I think Lando Norris, because he is a stunning driver on a Saturday afternoon, I think he will get into Q3 just about in P10. Piastri, though, because he's not raced here before, will have a bit more of a struggle, and I think he'll end up in 15th. But both McLarens will definitely get through to the second part of qualifying, and Lando, I think, will just about sneak into the top 10, which will be a great result for the McLaren team. And as long as they don't have any shenanigans in the race, knocking their wing off on the first lap, or pneumatic issues, gearbox issues, anything like that, then I think they've got a decent chance then of a points finish, have McLaren. But yeah, their pace definitely good enough to be fighting for the top 10. There is no doubt about that. Let's go through the rest of the midfield teams, though. Alfa Romeo. Yeah, Zhou was in the top 10 in practice 3, but I don't think that really matters, to be honest, that much. I don't think Alfa Romeo are legitimately that quick. I think they're going to be a bit slower, quite a bit slower than that. From what I've seen of their car so far this weekend, it doesn't look to be that great. They have brought a new upgrade. The front wing is quite a bit different. I think they've rearranged the wing elements on the front wing, and the nose cone you can see there is longer now than it was in Saudi Arabia. So a longer nose cone at Alfa Romeo. And yeah, there has been quite a few upgrades so far this weekend. Red Bull have got a new front wing. It's only a slightly upgraded front wing. It's nothing spectacular. What other upgrades do we have? Alpine have got a small one, I think, to the halo deflector. McLaren have got a small upgrade, I think, to the diffuser area. And obviously Alfa Romeo, they've got a front wing change. Alpha Tauri have got quite a few new upgrades. They've got especially a lot towards the floor area and the floor tunnels heading towards the rear of the car. A bit of that part of the car has been redesigned, rearranged, whatever you want to call it. And Williams also have got a very interesting and curious upgrade to their rear wing. And yeah, if you could try and find the Williams rear wing upgrade, which I showed on stream last night, it is very interesting and a bit weird, to be honest. But yeah, with Alfa Romeo, I hope their upgrade works, but I don't think we've seen enough so far this weekend to know, or even a suggestion that it definitely has improved their car. I hope it does, but we'll see in qualifying today. Valtteri Bottas, I think, should be ahead of Zhou on the grid. Valtteri has been pretty fast here in the past, so we'll see if he can replicate that speed not tomorrow, today. Haas F1, I think Haas will be right there, really, with McLaren, trying to get into the top 10. I still don't think they're quite on the pace of Alpine. I think Alpine are just a tad too quick for them, especially in the final sector. I think Alpine will have just a bit too much grip for the Haas team to handle. But the first two sectors looks very close, and the Haas team definitely going to contend for Q3. Today, Hülkenberg still looking pretty good. Kevin Magnussen, though, watch out for him because he has been very quick here in the past. And what was it? 2019 finished 6th in the race and qualified, I think, in 7th place. I think it was 6th place. In 2018 was 5th on the grid, and really would have ended up finishing in 5th or 6th place had it not been for the pit stop problems that day. So Kevin is pretty fast around this track. But yeah, watch out for both Haas drivers. They are definitely going to be contenders for getting into that top 10. They're going to be close, but yeah, they will just miss out, in my view, and they will end up in P11 and P12. Magnussen, I think, will end up just ahead of teammate Nico Hülkenberg on the grid. And AlphaTauri, yeah, AlphaTauri, they've got, they've got their upgrades, like I talked about a moment ago, to the floor area. Quite a few upgrades around the barge board floor area for this car. I really hope it improves their pace, but from what I've seen so far this weekend, again, like Alfa Romeo, there's nothing really to suggest that they're going to be, necessarily a lot quicker. I think them and Alfa Romeo are probably going to be the two slowest teams today in qualifying. Maybe not necessarily in the race, but definitely in qualifying. Tsunoda should be quicker here. De Vries obviously has never raced around this track. Yeah, Tsunoda will be the number one man, I think, at AlphaTauri. Yeah, they've just got a very mid car. I wouldn't say it's an absolutely terrible car. When you look at it on track, there's not obvious issues with it. It's not like a 2019 Williams or anything, but yeah, it's definitely one of the slowest cars out there. There is zero doubt about that. And finally, the Williams team. Williams, look out for them today. They are a dark horse for possibly a very good and strong result. And if Alex Albon can really pull out a special lap in qualifying, he might get not that far away from getting into the top 10, like a 13th or maybe even a P12 if he really pulls out something special, and Williams are even quicker than I expected them to be. My prediction is Albon 14th on the grid with Sargent in 16th. And yeah, for the race then, I think they'll be in a good position to make some progression from that. But yeah, if they can get at least one car into Q2, that would be, I think, good enough for them. Both cars into Q2 would be brilliant, and if they could get like a 13th and 14th on the grid, then yeah, that would be a brilliant effort by the Williams team, who of course did score points at this race last year, but they were a lot slower compared to the rest of the field last year at this track. And obviously in this Grand Prix, they're a lot better, and I really hope they can keep up their good start to 2023. But those are all the teams, guys. Let me know what you think in the live chat, and I'll get to your comments in just a second. What I'm going to do, though, before I come to you guys, is post a link of the stream out a couple more times on my homepage and also on Twitter. And then I'll come to your comments in the chat. Make sure to keep posting your comments, and I'll get to them. Come join us here to Watchalong qualifying in Australia. And I'll just quickly post it out on the Twitter as well. And yeah, just let me know for all the teams and drivers if you want, or certain teams and drivers. Just let me know, what do you think is going to happen in general. Come join us here to Watchalong qualifying in Australia. And I'll just quickly post a couple of hashtags, and then we will get into some of your comments. And let me just get that posted out. There you go. And Nib has just messaged me, because he is at the circuit, 3 minutes ago, saying that it is starting to rain. So yeah, that's going to make things very exciting. Currently, on the Sky F1 coverage, they're walking in the paddock under some trees, so we can't really see what the weather is truly like. But yeah, it does look a bit glum and does look pretty cold, I've got to say. And some umbrellas up. When the rain falls, it's not very hard. It's kind of just spitting here or there, and then maybe you get the odd light shower. But I have looked at the weather, and like I said, I think the chance of rain is about 40 to 45%. But as the session goes on, the chance of rain does diminish. So when we get to Q3, it should be a dry Q3, but it might start off in intermediate conditions. So, yeah. And it is great, by the way, that we are at a Grand Prix where rain is possible. Because, of course, the first two races, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, I mean, rain is possible in those countries, but it is incredibly rare. And, yeah, it's great to be at a track where rain is a possibility. Obviously, the next Grand Prix on the calendar, Baku. I'm not sure rain really is a possibility there. I've never seen it rain at that track. Miami, of course, it is. It's definitely possible there with a thunderstorm and a massive downpour. But yeah, it's great to come to these races where you can get a bit of a mix up with the weather. As I can see, Jackie Stewart just behind the Sky F1 crew, and good to see. Obviously, Jackie's still about in the paddock, and he still does his like paddock tours. I think he does. I think he's been doing that for so long. Obviously, he's a great explainer of Formula One, of just what Formula One is all about and everything. Yeah, great to see him still about. KH says midnight in Miami. Yeah, on the east coast of America, it's nearly 1 a.m. I'm pretty sure. And if you are on the west coast though, then the time is pretty good for you, because by the time qualifying starts, it'll be 10 p.m., which is not that bad at all. If you're on the west coast, let me know, because I'm sure you'll be not that tired. When I'm pretty tired, I only had about 4 hours sleep because I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and I didn't go sleep till 11:30, something like that at least, or midnight. So yeah, it's good enough definitely for you guys in North America. And of course, the Las Vegas Grand Prix later this year will be starting at around the same time, because obviously the race and I think qualifying start at 10 p.m. at night in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's going to be similar timing there. It's me, Spencer says, I'm 3-ish hours behind Oz, so I'm alright. That's good. Crystal Racing, who do you think will qualify in third? Blimey, it's already a dead cert for where Red Bull are. Yeah, well, there's no point at this point, trying to ask who's going to be on pole position, because I think we all know the answer to that. Alpine sure to finish 5th. Yeah, Alpine, I'm pretty sure they'll finish in 5th. But, I mean, maybe in the Constructors' Championship, I don't think necessarily, even with an Alonso-type driver in their car, would they do any better than 5th in the Championship this year. But I just feel as though on certain weekends where they're maybe not too far away from teams like Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, I just feel as though the potential of the car is not quite being shown, to be honest. Miss Marquis says, yeah, Alpine missed the mark with Piastri, obviously, but I think they might be talking to Daniel Ricciardo. He's certainly been hinting at a return next year, and Alpine would be best, I guess you're trying to say there. Yeah, I think it came out. So I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Ricciardo or Otmar Safnauer, who is the team principal, basically, of the Alpine team. Basically came out and said that, yeah, discussions were had last year between Ricciardo and Alpine. I mean, if they hired Ricciardo and Ricciardo got back to his 2020 level, then it would be great, obviously, for us, for Ricciardo, but most importantly for Alpine, because even though Ocon, in the second half of 2020, definitely improved quite a bit and was getting competitive to a certain extent with Ricciardo, Ricciardo was still clearly better than Esteban in 2020. So if they were to hire Daniel, and he was to, say, replace Gasly, that's who most likely he would replace, then, if he was to be a bit better than Ocon like he was in 2020, then it would be great for the Alpine team, because they'd be able then to more so get the absolute most out of the car. But it's still a bit hard to say with Ricciardo whether, his time at McLaren, was it because of the car just really not suiting him at all? Was it because maybe Ricciardo has just, after hitting his peak, I would say, in 2020, maybe he has really took quite a downturn with his own driving. Again, it's hard to say. And until we see Ricciardo in another team, in another car, it's hard to say whether Daniel, is still good enough or not. Because, his time at McLaren was just weird and just very unexpected in terms of what happened. Crystal Racing says Ricciardo should have never left Red Bull. He could have done a Kimi and snatched the title in 2021 with Hamilton and Verstappen scrapping. Yeah, if he stayed there, if he stayed at Red Bull that year, he probably could have been, as long as he, stayed consistent, he could have probably been in that championship battle to a certain extent, because Max and Lewis were not perfect, obviously, through the year. Max, had races, obviously, at Silverstone, Hungary, Monza, for whatever reason, where he didn't score that many points at all. Hamilton had a couple of races like that where he didn't really score that many points. So, yeah, he probably could have been in there, but I'm not sure, to be honest, he would have been able to match the level of Verstappen and Hamilton, because I think Max and Lewis that year were on another level compared to everybody. I don't think, even though drivers like Norris that year, Sainz, Leclerc, drivers like that, even though they had a really good season, especially Lando Norris, I think Max and Lewis that year were just on another planet compared to everybody else. And I don't think there's anyone that year that could have got close to them, even in better cars, necessarily. Bravamol says, I think Red Bull are desperate to get Danny Ricciardo to be the reserve driver for a few teams to see if he still has it. KG says, Zhou seems to really struggle in Melbourne. Last year, he didn't do too great, but so far this weekend, he's not looked too bad. Bravam saying, I predict Max to win by 3.5 minutes. Crystal Racing says, don't be shocked if AlphaTauri or Williams finish 6th in the championship with points opportunities scarce this year, especially if we get a 2021 Hungary Grand Prix or 2020 Italian Grand Prix happening. Yeah, it is possible. And Crystal Racing also saying Alfa have one insanely mid driver lineup, and then Brabham kind of in response saying they should have Teo next year, I'd imagine. Well, I hope he is, in that car, but so far this season, Teo has not been that good. I've got to be honest, in F2. In Saudi Arabia was pretty poor, and obviously, didn't score a point in the Australian sprint race we saw towards the end of the sprint race. He fell off the track and ended up finishing, I think, in last place. So, yeah, Teo has got to really step it up, because if he doesn't, then I'm not sure he really does deserve to be in Formula 1. But obviously with Alfa Romeo, kind of to do with, or going back to the point with Alpine, with Alfa Romeo becoming Audi, obviously in 2026, they will need a front-running driver to head up their project if they're going to get the absolute maximum out of whatever car they've got. And really, that's got to be Audi's aim for 2026, is to get a front-running driver in their car. And hiring or tempting Sebastian Vettel out of retirement isn't necessarily the answer, because Vettel might not be good enough to be a front-running driver anymore if he was to come back in 2026. So, yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. Dane Chaz, he asks, do you agree with most people saying Alonso has been the best driver of the season so far, despite we know how good Max and Lewis are? I wouldn't say Alonso's been the best driver this season. I think it's too hard to say that he's been the best driver this season. I think the best driver this season has been Verstappen. He's been faultless, been incredibly quick. In Bahrain, he absolutely hammered everyone, and yeah, I think Verstappen has been the best driver this season. I think, like I said, with Alonso, it's too hard to say because the Aston Martin car is that much slower than the Red Bull car. And yeah, Alonso just obviously hasn't been able to get close to them and hasn't pulled off any heroics like we saw obviously 10 years ago, back in like 2012, 2013, where despite other cars being a lot quicker, Alonso would, magically get up there. But we are, guys, just 5 minutes away from qualifying starting. Before we get into qualifying, though, just want to say quickly that don't forget, if you are new to the channel, to subscribe for more content like this, because tomorrow morning I'll be live at 4 a.m. UK time. That's 2 hours before the race starts in Melbourne. For firstly the race preview until 5:30. Race starts at 6 a.m. Obviously, we did a watch along for that, and then a reaction to the race afterwards, and a review of the whole weekend and all the talking points on Monday evening coming up live at 8 p.m. UK time that Monday evening. And make sure, guys, to smash the like button. We're currently on 25 likes. Let's try and get up to, say, 40 likes by the time we get to, say, the end of Q2, which should be in, like, 30 minutes or so from now. So, yeah, make sure to smash that like button if you haven't already. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. But as the F1 intro now starts to play, it's now time to get ready. I'm going to quickly end the poll in the chat. Thank you guys for voting. 109 votes. The question was, who do you think will qualify third for the Australian Grand Prix? And you guys voted with 41% of the vote for Fernando Alonso. Second, Charles Leclerc. Third, Lewis Hamilton. And fourth is George Russell. And my prediction, I'm sticking with Charles Leclerc, but obviously you guys gone for Alonso. Not necessarily massively surprised you guys have gone for that, because obviously he has been very good this season. But of course, he did qualify third in Saudi Arabia, but really that was only because of Max Verstappen's drive shaft issue. If it wasn't for that, then I think Alonso would have been fourth on the grid in Jeddah. So yeah, we'll see if Fernando can show a bit better qualifying speed today compared to at least the Ferrari team. As we are here at a cold, overcast, and maybe slightly damp Melbourne track. Albert Park track, obviously, in Melbourne. And a beautiful area. But yeah, temperatures not great. And tyre temperature going to certainly be an issue in this session. We've seen so many off-track moments so far this weekend because of it not being particularly warm. And there not being really a ton of rubber down on the track at many times this weekend. And reminder, the 3 compounds this weekend are the C4, C3 and C2 compound for this Grand Prix. In terms of the race tomorrow, it should still be a one-stop race because the temperatures are still not quite, very hot for it to really rip the tyres to shreds. And, and obviously with it being a street track, yeah, I don't think drivers or teams are going to be going really for a 2-stop Grand Prix. But yeah, we are very close to qualifying. Let's hope that it is an exciting session, maybe with a bit of rain sprinkled in for our excitement. And I can see Jenson Button is in the Sky F1 commentary box. Martin Brundle obviously not travelling. Obviously, quite a bit older now, Martin, and does need to rest up with the calendar being so long. But I think I'll hide the timer, or get rid of it. And quickly, before we get into qualifying, a quick reminder of the championship standings. Max Verstappen leads the championship by a single point from Sergio Perez. Alonso third, Carlos Sainz fourth, level on points with Lewis Hamilton fifth, with Russell sixth, Stroll seventh, Leclerc eighth, Bottas ninth, and Esteban Ocon in P10. And on the constructor side, Red Bull almost 50 points clear already of Aston Martin second to a level on points with Mercedes third. Ferrari are fourth with Alpine fifth, Alfa Romeo sixth, Haas seventh, Williams eighth, AlphaTauri ninth, and McLaren in 10th. And yeah, the session starts in under a minute. I will sync up the timer for the 17-minute mark. Of course, Q1 is a 18-minute long session, and in a moment I will get the dotted, or I will do it actually now, get the dotted line out to show obviously where the cut-off point is. Let me obviously decrease the size of it quite a bit, and yeah, let me just decrease the size of it just a bit more, and hopefully I just bring it down slightly. There you go. And actually, let me just bring it across slightly as well. As the session, not sure has it started yet? I'm not sure. I can't see anything as of yet to confirm whether the session has actually got underway. Let me just adjust that line again. And there you go. So anyone, obviously, oh, hold on, it's in the wrong position. It needs to be there, between where it says De Vries and Stroll. So obviously, anyone below 15th place at the end of Q1 will be knocked out of the session, as the red light is still on the exit of the pit lane. Green light on, and qualifying begins in Melbourne. Obviously, a lot of cars already wanting to pile out onto the track because, of course, there is rain in the air. So, yeah, they don't want to be taking risks, because if you get out there at the wrong time and the track's in horrible condition, doesn't matter how good you are, you'll get caught out and you'll get eliminated. And yeah, pretty much all the midfield runners piling out onto the track. There's Lando Norris and Nico Hülkenberg towards, or Kevin Magnussen, I think maybe it is, towards the rear of this gaggle of cars, as they come out onto track, obviously on the soft compound tyre. And won't be the absolute quickest outlap for a lot of these drivers. And there you go. 17 minutes to go in Q1. And let's see who falls foul of the cutoff zone in this session. So far this season, really, it's been teams like Williams, Alfa Tauri, even Alpine, McLaren that have suffered in Q1. We'll see if they suffer in this session. Here is Oscar Piastri getting on with it on his outlap, and is already in the middle sector and just on the third DRS zone, and coming up to the end of that middle sector, as Alex Albon, I think, has just started a flying lap. So the first man to start a flying lap is Albon, who was one of the drivers of the weekend last year at this Grand Prix. And yeah, we're just looking at Piastri. And yeah, really hope that Oscar can have a good session and at least make it into Q2. I think that'd be a decent effort, to be honest. Here is, though, Alex Albon, I think it is. Not sure exactly who it is, but it's Logan Sargent, and to me, it looks like Sargent is not quite pushing. It looks as though he's warm. Yeah, he's warming his tyres up. And this is what I said, obviously coming to the session, because of the low temperatures, the air temperature only 14 degrees Celsius. That is quite cold, especially for these tyres. So they are going to have an extra warm-up lap like they did in Saudi Arabia, a lot of the teams, to get their tyres fired up for a proper quick lap. Kevin Magnussen, though, is just getting straight on with it. And it's already through the first two sectors. And car looks very good through the turn 9-10 chicane, as Alex Albon goes quickest from Logan Sargent in second place. So let me just quickly update that before Magnussen and obviously Lando Norris, who's on a lap, before they complete their runs. Let me just quickly do this, as Magnussen does go P1 and Lando Norris goes second for McLaren. Don't know what the lap times were like. I can't tell you, if they're proper, legitimate times. As Lando Norris, up to second. And then you've got Zhou in third place with Valtteri Bottas in fourth. And then Nico Hülkenberg is fifth for the Haas F1 team. Magnussen not P1 anymore, as Logan Sargent on the entry to the final corner, spinning, thankfully, gets going again and just pulls straight into the pit lane, so it doesn't cause a red flag or anything. But yeah, Alex Albon now quickest by nearly half a second over Magnussen. And Albon 118.9. It's not quite as quick as I think Albon went in practice 3, but it's not too far off. As here comes Hülkenberg to the line, and he goes half a second quicker onto a 1, or even further than that. He's gone onto a 118.3 as Hülkenberg. And that is his best lap time of the weekend. So Hülkenberg first, Albon second is a replay. So Sargent locked his inside front going into the penultimate corner. Round wide, put the accelerator down on the exit on the curb, which may be a bit damp, and then spun. Just a bit of a rookie error there. It's Max Verstappen on the exit of turn 1. Very lucky there not to fall off the track. Was really straddling the curve, and rear end coming around quite a bit on the exit of turn 3. The grip out there is definitely not that great. What's his first sector like? It's half a second slower than Hülkenberg, so yeah, not a good start to the lap really. But it is currently Hülkenberg P1 from Albon, Magnussen in third, and then Piastri is in fourth place. As, the car's gone off. Red flag. Who was it? It looked like an Alfa Romeo to me. I didn't quite see who that was. And, Sergio Perez in the gravel as well. Has there been a collision maybe? But Perez is stuck in the gravel. And if he can't get going again, then Perez will be out of qualifying. Because, once you get out of your car, you can't then get back into the session. This is what happened. Perez locked his inside front, went deep, and then the car just beached itself in the gravel. An old school type of thing happening there. But let me just hide the timer. Obviously, it's just going to keep ticking there. But I think because, it's really because of the mud and the puddles down there, Perez just got stuck. And Perez is out, surely, of qualifying. And I think that is what the car was at turn 3 that went off. Originally, I thought it was an Alfa Romeo for some reason. But, Sergio Perez is off. And presumably, Sergio Perez is out of qualifying. So we will have a non-Red Bull front row. Still could have, obviously, a Red Bull pole position. But, they're not going to have the front row. And Perez is going to be at the very back of the field. So already that makes tomorrow's race interesting. So, red flag currently. And it's currently Hülkenberg P1, Albon second, Magnussen third, Piastri fourth, Norris fifth, Zhou is sixth. And then it is De Vries in 7th, with Bottas 8th, Tsunoda 9th, and Logan Sargent in 10th. So the top 10 is all there. And Perez just went into turn 3, locked up heavily, and just got stuck, I think, because of the rain and the mud down there. And just a massive lock-up, went way too quick into the corner and just got stuck, I think. And he said, we need to sort that issue, man. It was the same fucking issue again. I'm pretty sure that's what he's saying there with that bleep. Or same shit issue again. And yeah, it just went way too fast. Way too fast. Was never going to make the corner. And he's had to pay for it. And that's just clear driver error. And we do have a red flag. So yes, Sergio Perez will start the Australian Grand Prix at the very back of the field. So only 4 other spots we're looking at in terms of who will be eliminated. And Crystal Racing says, now we will see how fast that Red Bull really is. Yeah, probably going to be a bit scary tomorrow as the Red Bull taken away. And yeah, Perez has never really been that great on a Saturday afternoon in Australia. It's never really hit the headlines. And that was a very poor showing from Perez. Very poor showing. And that's just a clear illustration of why he is definitely not going to be fighting for the championship this year because, you know, there is a clear gulf in class between him and Max Verstappen. Max was a bit obviously ragged on his first lap that he was on, but, you know, didn't make a really massive error like that. But I will get, guys, the timer back on screen once the red flag period ends. It should end, really, in the next couple minutes. And it'll the session will start again at the 11-minute and 44-second mark. And of course, I'll sync up the timer at the 11-minute mark. As Perez now confirmed to be off the track. And the session will resume in 2 minutes' time. They'll be back underway very soon. And yeah, that's definitely going to help, though, teams like AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Williams, with Perez out of qualifying. And maybe if we get a couple other big driver errors from some of the more front-running drivers, yeah, could really make things interesting. And obviously, there is still the possibility of rain. As Perez now has to contemplate starting from the back and has to obviously fight his way through tomorrow. And yeah, if you're wondering why the field on the screen is, or my screen is the way it is, with Hulkenberg first and all the way, you know, down to Sargent 10th, that's because those 10 drivers have set a lap time. Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, and Perez have not set a lap time. Obviously, Perez will not set a time at all because he's out of qualifying after his beaching in the gravel. Yeah, that's why the field is the way it is. Like, once we get, you know, to like the 7-minute mark of the session, the field will be in a much different position. But I'm just going to quickly have a drink before we get into the rest of this session. As the session, I think, is going to get underway again in, I don't know, the next minute or so. And Perez now being took back to the paddock. And it is a good rule, of course, that, you know, if you do, you know, break down or get eliminated in qualifying for whatever reason, that you can, you know, not re-enter the session. I do like that as a rule because back in the, you know, say 25 years ago, if you had a breakdown in qualifying or that happened, as long as you could get the car back before the end of the session, you could theoretically still get back out on track. But thankfully, that no longer is possible, so makes things a bit more exciting and obviously does punish the drivers for making errors. And Max Verstappen, the first car on the exit of the pit lane. Just to let you guys know, as we've got 25 seconds to go until the session restarts. Now 20 seconds, 2 Ferraris side by side on the exit of the pit lane. Obviously, the you know, Perez is out, and then you got Verstappen who hasn't set a lap time yet. Neither has the 2 Mercedes, or the 2 Aston Martins, or the 2 Alpines, or the 2 Ferraris. So they really need to get out there and get on with it and hope that it doesn't rain, because if it does, they're screwed. As Lando Norris now comes out of his garage, and they all start to pile out on track. Verstappen, the 2 Aston Martins, Alex Albon, the 2 Ferraris, and Lando Norris. Yeah, we'll see what these drivers can do. Some of them going to be doing their second runs. Some of them on their first runs in qualifying. Mercedes still in the pits. And still waiting. Probably for a bit of clear air on track. And I'll sync up the timer in a few seconds. In 3, 2, 1. And there you go. 11 minutes to go in Q1. And let's see if we get any more surprises. As we are currently looking at probably Fernando Alonso, and it is, who is coming up to the end of the middle sector. Just firing his tyres up. And will Alonso have his tyres fired up enough to be able to, sorry, to go for a quick lap straight away, or will he have to do another warm-up lap? We'll see. Max Verstappen, by the looks of it, is going for a flying lap straight away, and he's going to be the first man after the red flag to start a lap. Let's see what Verstappen can do. Did a 1:17.5 in practice 3. With now 10 minutes to go in Q1. Here he comes into turn 3 where Perez locked up. Much more comfortable this time around from Max. And all slight bit of oversteer through turn 4. But first sector is not great, I've got to be honest. He's actually slower than Hülkenberg in the first sector. But really, the rest of the lap is where the Red Bull should be in good shape. And Alonso has not done a good first sector either. Quite a bit slower than his teammate, and quite a bit slower than Hülkenberg. Max, quarter of a second up now on Hülkenberg after the first 2 sectors. So yeah, Max should probably do a mid 1:17 as he comes into turn 11 there. Now through the final few corners. Red Bull car in this final sector is easily the best car out there. And yeah, looking all good there for Max. Are absolutely planted. And now, with the DRS open, comes to the line and actually does not do a 1:17, does a 1:18.0. So Max, a bit slower than I expected, but yeah, he is in P1. Is Verstappen. Lance Stroll goes 3rd. Aston Martin, and Alonso has gone 5th. So yeah, both Aston Martins obviously will need to improve on that. So Stroll 3rd and Alonso in 5th place. As here is Russell, and both Mercedes are coming to the end of their first flying laps. And let's see what George Russell can do. He comes to the line and goes P5, which is okay. And Lewis Hamilton goes 4th. So let me just update that. So Lewis Hamilton is up to 4th place. And that pushes actually Russell now down to 6th. So it is currently Verstappen, Hülkenberg, Stroll, Hamilton, Albon, Russell, Alonso, Magnussen, Piastri, Norris, and then Zhou, De Vries, Bottas, Tsunoda. And then, yeah, the rest of the field hasn't set a good enough lap time yet, really. As here comes, I think, Alex Albon, is it? Yep, who has done, impressively, a purple middle sector. And comes to the line and only goes slightly slower than Max Verstappen and goes 2nd, 0.08 of a second slower than than, the Max Verstappen. So great lap there. Charles Leclerc goes up to 7th for the Ferrari team. So Leclerc up to P7. Carlos Sainz is, is up to 3rd. So Ferrari have got their first times on the board. So your top 10 with 6.5 minutes to go. Verstappen, Albon, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Stroll, and then Lando Norris is now up in 6th place with Hamilton 7th. Pierre Gasly is now in 8th for Alpine. And then it is Leclerc 9th, and Logan Sargent has impressively gone up to 10th place in a Williams car that is looking good. Esteban Ocon goes 7th. Alonso about to complete another lap. He did a purple first sector. It did not improve his middle sector. Let's see what he does for the lap. And he goes quickest onto a 1:17.8. Still not as quick as he went in practice 3. But yeah, a lot better that time around from the Spaniard. Alonso is up to P1. And, well, not anymore, because Max Verstappen has now done the new lap record of a 1:17.4. The Max Verstappen first, Alonso second, Lance Stroll goes 3rd, and then it's Albon, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Norris, Ocon, Hamilton, Gasly for the rest of the top 10. Not anymore, because George Russell has gone up to 4th. Let me just update that. And Lewis Hamilton has gone 6th. So, with 5 minutes to go, let me just try and get the order correct if I can. So, yeah, top 10 is Verstappen, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Albon, Hamilton, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Norris, Ocon, and then in 11th to 15th, you've got Gasly, De Vries in P12. Let me just update that. And then Zhou in 13th, with Tsunoda in 14th place, and Charles Leclerc at the minute is the driver at risk in 15th place. He is on another lap though and is improving. So Leclerc is 15th and currently in the drop zone. Logan Sargent 16th, Bottas 17th, Piastri 18th, Magnussen 19th, and Perez 20th. Of course, Perez is absolutely out of the session, as Alex Albon now goes 3rd. What a session Albon is having so far. Up in P3. By the way, I can see we're on 41 likes. Cheers for that, guys. Let's try and get to 50 likes if we can by the time we get to Q3, which is not that far away. Carlos Sainz is now up to 4th. And here comes Charles Leclerc, who goes only 8th. I would have expected a bit more than that, got to say. Not quite sure why he's been slower than his teammates so far in qualifying, as Valtteri Bottas does improve, but only goes up to 16th. Kevin Magnussen improves a lot, goes out of the drop zone and up to 9th place. So good effort there from Kevin. Pierre Gasly goes 11th. Nico Hülkenberg is up to P5. Logan Sargent now goes up to 12th position. And Zhou is up now to P12. So all moving about with less than 3 minutes to go, as Esteban Ocon goes up to 8th place. And here comes Nick De Vries. What can he do? Goes up to 12th. That's a good effort. Really good effort from him, because remember, he's never raced around here before. The De Vries up to P12. Max Verstappen goes even quicker onto a 1:17.3. So he's now 4.5 tenths quicker than Fernando Alonso. As Tsunoda gets out of the drop zone but goes slower than his teammate, but is up to 13th. So, as George Russell now goes 3rd. And Lando Norris here is in 17th place, but he's not on a better lap. First 2 sectors are not an improvement. as Lewis Hamilton goes up to second. Good lap there by Lewis. Norris, though, does improve his final sector and goes up to 12th. But that is not quite good enough, I feel. So let me just get the order correct. So currently it is Max P1, 3/10 quicker than Hamilton in second. And then Alonso third, Russell fourth. And then Albon, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Stroll, Ocon, Leclerc complete the top 10. And then from 11th to 15th, the drivers most at risk, you've got Magnussen, Norris, De Vries, Tsunoda, Gasly being the biggest driver at risk. And then in the drop zone, with almost 1 minute to go, guys, Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargeant, Oscar Piastri, Valtteri Bottas, and Sergio Perez. So really not looking good for Alfa Romeo. And let's see what they can do. Here is Bottas on a better lap. Not improved his middle sector, but he is still slightly up on Gasly. But he had to close his DRS briefly on the exit of turn 10 because he ran a bit wide on the exit of that fast chicane. And not a great lap here again from the Finn, who of course won this race in 2019 very dominantly. Obviously was helped by Lewis Hamilton having a poor start and damage to his car. Bottas comes to the line and stays in 19th place. And if he's not got any more tyres or fuel left, then that is a really pathetic effort from him. As all Gasly, not the greatest run there through turn 11. As Magnussen goes up to P10. Carlos Sainz is up to 5th. As the checkered flag now flies. Who will be knocked out in Q1? Can Pierre Gasly definitely get himself into the next part of qualifying? He goes up to 13th. Will that be good enough? Leclerc, by the way, in 11th has pitted as Hülkenberg improves his time. Zhou Guanyu does not improve his time. He is out. Piastri goes up to 16th. He is out as well. The track not really improving. Logan Sargeant as well in 18th place is out of qualifying as Esteban Ocon goes up to 3rd. Here comes Nick De Vries and he stays 14th. Great effort, by the way, by Nick into Q2 for the first time this season. And both AlphaTauris through, unless Valtteri Bottas can find an improvement. Here comes George Russell. What can he do? He goes up to 2nd ahead of his teammate, but with one extra lap, I think, over Lewis Hamilton. As Lance Stroll goes up to 6th, and here's a replay of Charles Leclerc at turn 11, I'm pretty sure it is. And just understeering wide by the looks of it. And yeah, car, poor grip really through that corner, ran wide into the gravel, and was lucky that the track did not really massively improve with grip in that final run, because if it did, Leclerc probably would have been knocked out in Q1 along with Sergio Perez. But guys, that is Q1 over and done with. Into Q2 is Max Verstappen, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, Nick De Vries, and Yuki Tsunoda, meaning that knocked out in Q1, the home driver, Oscar Piastri, Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargeant, Valtteri Bottas, and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. And Q2, guys, obviously will be underway shortly. And yeah, definitely disappointing for Piastri to not get through to Q2. And McLaren still getting cars dropped out in that part of the session, which is obviously not good. And yeah, for Q2, obviously I'll sync up the timer at the 14-minute mark. And let me just quickly... what do you call it? Let me just quickly get another dotted line out. Here you go. So I can just place it for the next part of the session. So obviously everyone between 11th and 15th by the end of Q2 will be out of the session. Battery Voltas, we miss you. Bottas 19th. Where is Bottas 2.0? Yeah. By the way, hello to... I can't pronounce your first name, which is very difficult for me. The person in chat saying, greetings, Chaza. Hello to you. Really hope you're good. And I hope everyone is good as well. Cheers, by the way, for 50 likes. That's great to see. And if you haven't hit the like button already, of course, make sure to do so. Let's try and get up to 60 or 65 likes by the end of Q2. Q2 should be starting in the next couple of minutes. But yeah, looking at Q1, obviously Sergio Perez, very poor by him. With his mistake, just, yeah, shocking performance by Perez. Very poor by Bottas. Should not be getting out qualified by Zhou around this track. You know, Valtteri has always been very quick here. It just should not be happening. Sargent, a bit disappointing, especially compared to where Alex Albon was in Q1. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was the worst performance in the world. Decent job by Zhou. Nothing special, but I will admit, you know, decent effort considering he out-qualified Bottas, and he is now 2-1 over Bottas in qualifying. And yeah, Oscar Piastri. I know he's never raced here before, but I think he should have done a tad better than that. I don't think he would have been, you know, contending really for Q3 today, but yeah, I think he should have done a tad better than that, to be honest. But I'm sure we'll see improvement from him in the race. And obviously improvement from this driver on the screen. Sergio Perez in the race, who binned it early on. And yeah, what a shocking effort from him. And was it Karin Chandhok on Sky F1? He's just going through some of the onboards from Q1. And just, I think he's looking at what Piastri was doing right before he started his flying lap and was going very slowly, was Piastri, for his final run. When I mean very slowly, I mean the outlap. Towards the end of the outlap, he was going quite slow. And maybe that's why Piastri wasn't quite that quick today, because the tyres were not quite fired up enough for him to be getting into Q2. But Bottas on the radio, shaking his head. Yeah, he should be, because I don't understand why he was so slow. And I think it's pretty clear to see, as Q2, by the way, starts in exactly 1 minute from now. Pretty clear to see that despite their front wing upgrades, Alfa Romeo are still really slow. And they are, this weekend, the slowest team in the field. Pretty clear to see. And yeah, dark days for Alfa Romeo. I mean, if you remember this time last year, they were, I think, what was it, 5th in the championship? I think maybe at one point they were 4th in the championship in the early part of the season. And now, I mean, they're still 6th in the championship, but, you know, the chances of them holding on to that is not great, given their current speed. As Q2 underway in, 15 seconds. Cars queuing up on the exit the pit lane. I don't think rain is a threat really anymore. Definitely looks brighter, the sky. Let me just readjust this picture quickly on the screen so you can see it a bit more. There you go. Yeah, as the session is now underway, green light has gone. Yeah, it's a bit brighter now, and the temperature might be just a tad better. So yeah, it's looking less likely now for rain. As I said, when I looked at the weather before I came on stream, the chance of rain diminishes as the session goes on. That's what the weather was saying. So yeah, should be no rain for the rest of this session. That's Max Verstappen still in the garage. Plenty of cars already on the track, but Verstappen and clearly the Alpine of Gasly there waiting a bit longer. And Pierre Gasly, obviously, only just about sneaked through. And let me just get the timer on screen right now. There you go. 14 minutes to go in Q2. And let's see what surprises we get in this session. As Lando Norris, here he is, flying through the middle sector. And now we're looking at a Ferrari of, is it Charles Leclerc? Yes, it is. The man who obviously took pole and the race win here last year. Doesn't look as though he's going to be doing a quick lap, though. Looks as though he's going to be warming his tyres up on this lap. Because, it was quite slow into the final corner. Is quite slow into the first corner as well. So, yeah, another warm-up lap is required. And looks as though De Vries is probably doing that as well. And as I said, this was going to be an issue because of the quite cold temperatures. As Verstappen, by the way, is on track now. The only cars in the pits are the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. Not anymore. Hamilton now on track with his teammate Russell. And the Alpines still in the pits. As here is Fernando Alonso coming up to the end of the first sector. And purple first sector, of course, but nobody has done really a lap so far. As Alonso into the middle sector now, where the Aston Martin is at its slowest because of their lack of straight line speed. The Aston Martin, though, clearly is not suffering with tyre warm-up issues because they didn't need an extra warm-up lap in Q1 and obviously so far in Q2. They don't need one because the car looks pretty lively and looks pretty good to me. So yeah, Aston Martin not suffering as badly with those issues. As De Vries goes P1, but I'm not sure it's a very quick lap time. Nope, it is not. It's a 1:27.5. That is a very slow lap time. As Alonso will get a slight slipstream from the car ahead and comes to the line and does a 1:17.6, which is only slightly quicker than he went in practice 3 earlier in the morning. Yellow flag in sector 3 briefly. Not anymore, as Norris does a time, but is still very slow. Lance Stroll now goes quickest by just over half a tenth. Great effort from Lance. Obviously, we're expecting Alonso to be the quicker Aston Martin, but there you go. Stroll P1, Alonso P2. And you've got a lot of other drivers setting lap times, but none of them are proper lap times yet. As here's a replay of Verstappen running wide on the exit of turn 1. Not massively wide, but still wide that it would cost you probably a quarter of a second. And here is Charles Leclerc, I'm pretty sure. Yep, he's done 2 purple sectors. So looking a lot better now from the Ferrari team. And into the final 3 corners he comes. And let's see what Leclerc can do. Ferrari weren't very quick at all in Q1. But we'll see what Leclerc can do as he comes to the line now. And does go quickest onto a 1:17.5. So Leclerc is up to P1. And Carlos Sainz goes only 4th for the Ferrari team. Of course, though, remember the fastest time done so far this weekend was by Max Verstappen in Q1, a 1:17.3. So, yeah, I'm sure Verstappen can go quite a bit quicker. Kevin Magnussen is up to 5th place. Hulkenberg now goes 3rd. Very impressive from the German. Hulkenberg 3rd. As Verstappen has done a purple first sector. We'll see what he can do in a moment. Yeah, Hulkenberg 3rd, Alonso 4th, and then Sainz. Albon in 6th. Magnussen 7th. And then I'll do the rest of the field in a moment. Here comes Verstappen to the line. 3.5 tenths quicker. And goes quickest onto a 17.2. Thankfully, I didn't scream then because my throat completely gave out. Yeah, Verstappen up to P1. Like I said, on a 17.2, a new lap record. So it's Verstappen from Leclerc, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Magnussen, and then Tsunoda is in P9 with De Vries in 10th. And then Norris or Russell, Hamilton, Ocon, Norris, Gasly all have not set a proper lap time as of yet. As Alonso improves to a 1:17.2. That is a very good lap time from Alonso. And here comes now George Russell, who only goes 7th. That's not great. And Lewis Hamilton only goes now 7th. Yeah, not good lap times there by Mercedes. They really needed to be doing a lot better than that. So 7th and 8th only, as here's a replay of Norris off the track on the exit of turn 3. Thankfully didn't go as deep as Perez and didn't get stuck. That's why Norris is in the drop zone. And here is De Vries, who's currently in P12 on a better lap. Having a good session is the Dutchman. As Lando Norris is on an out lap now, so is Alex Albon. Obviously, Norris needs to improve. De Vries improves his lap time, but stays in P12. And is quite a bit away, to be honest, from getting into Q3. Nearly 0.6 of a second slower than Magnussen in 10th. As here is Tsunoda, who has done 2 personal best sectors. Can he get possibly into the top 10? As Tsunoda now through the final few corners. Esteban Ocon doing a decent first sector. And Gasly as well. Both up on Magnussen in 10th. And here comes Tsunoda to the line. And goes up to 10th place. Brilliant lap there from Yuki Tsunoda. And here is now Esteban Ocon. With this lap, Ocon is probably going to go up to maybe 8th place with this lap. And Gasly will be probably going into the top 10 as well. As all bit of understeer there at the penultimate corner of turn 13. Through turn 14, he's absolutely fine. To the line he comes, DRS wide open, and yep, 8th place for the Alpine. Pierre Gasly goes only 12th. That is a poor effort from Pierre Gasly, and yeah, only P12. Lando Norris, by the way, is on track, currently on a lap, and here he is, exiting turn 3, now already through turn 4. Alex Albon currently, yes, you are reading it right, currently is on his way into Q3. Imagine if that actually does happen. As Lando Norris now into the middle sector. What can he do with his middle sector compared to Alex Albon, as George Russell improves massively, and he had to, and goes up to 4th place. And haven't seen Lewis Hamilton improve either. So, yeah. Russell up to 4th. As Lando Norris looks as though he's backed off. Yes, he has. Maybe just doing a bit of a warm-up lap to properly get those tyres fired up, with 5 minutes to go in this session. Can Lando Norris get into Q3 for the 3rd Australian Grand Prix in a row? Currently in the drop zone with nearly 4.5 minutes to go. Tsunoda, Gasly, Magnussen, De Vries, and Lando Norris. And here, yeah, Norris is now properly on a lap now. Let's see what that first sector time is like. Slight oversteer on the turn 4, but nothing major. And he is slightly up on Albon, but here in the middle sector, he is going to be quite a bit slower. I think, than Alex, because that Williams is quite a bit quicker. Good first sector for Ocon, only a tenth and a half slower than Verstappen. Gasly's done a good and definitely better first sector. Yeah, Norris quite slow in the middle sector, but the final sector is where this McLaren car comes alive. And will it come alive for him to get into the top 10? Here he comes now, all right on the limit of the track, very close to going onto the gravel on the exit of turn 11. As Norris through turn 13 looks very good. And through the final corner as well. DRS wide open. Can Norris get into Q3? Yes, he can by 0.04 of a second, but he's going to have to do another lap, really, to make sure of a Q3 appearance. Because, yeah, not sure that'll be good enough. As Esteban Ocon stays 9th, Pierre Gasly goes up to P10. As Alex Albon has done a purple middle sector, comes to the line and goes 9th. Albon is on fire in Australia. And he's up to 9th ahead of both Alpines and the McLaren of Norris. Imagine if Williams outqualified both Alpines and both McLarens in Australia today. Nobody saw that coming, not just for this weekend, but for this season. And yeah, Norris right on the edge of the track on the exit of turn 11. Probably did lose a small amount of time, but yeah, got away with it, thankfully. But will have to improve again if he is to get through. As we've got 2.5 minutes to go. And Nick De Vries, I've just seen, is up to 13th place, which is not a bad effort, but I don't think De Vries really or AlphaTauri are going to get near Q3. They don't look to be quick enough to me. As Kevin Magnussen, I think, is maybe on a warm-up lap. I'm not sure, to be honest. As we are looking at Magnussen, who has got the DRS open, but I don't think is moving that quick, to be honest. Yeah, Magnussen definitely is not. Or is this... No, this is not Magnussen. This is Nico Hülkenberg. As Max Verstappen improves his lap time again, guys. 1:17.0. So we're very close now to the 1:16s. And yeah, Red Bull still easily quick. The quickest, as a bird there or something walking across the track, and Verstappen lucky to not hit it. Just a replay of that quickly. And here comes Kevin Magnussen. He's been in Q3 before here in Melbourne. Not since 2019, but he has been quick here before. Can he pull himself into the top 10? His teammate currently is very impressively in the top 10. Let's see if he will join him. As Magnussen comes to the end of the first sector. And he is slightly up on Esteban Ocon. Now into the middle sector where the Haas is at its best. Magnussen, how far up will he be on Ocon? Actually slower than Ocon. He's lost time to the Alpine in that middle sector. Good pace there from the Alpine. As Hülkenberg's not done a personal best middle sector, he's gone slower than his personal best. Can Magnussen, though, really ace this final sector to maybe get into Q3, as De Vries has not improved his first sector? Pierre Gasly gets out of the drop zone, goes up to 4th place in the Alpine. What a lap that he's produced there. Here comes Kevin Magnussen, only 12th, and that is his session over and done with. Hülkenberg goes 3rd in the Haas. What a season he is having in the Haas, and he is comfortably in to Q3 for the second time this season. Something I did not expect in the first 3 races of the season. As Alex Albon has pitted and is currently in P10, and he is really at risk now of getting knocked out. As here comes Nick De Vries. Can he improve? No, he stays in 14th place. Carlos Sainz, currently in P8. He comes to the line, goes up to 3rd. Lewis Hamilton is low down. He needs to improve as Tsunoda goes 12th. That's a good effort from Tsunoda. Very good effort. George Russell goes up to P5. Lewis Hamilton goes up to 6th. Here comes Lando Norris as Leclerc goes 4th. Norris only 13th. A poor result for McLaren. And Esteban Ocon, where is he? Is he not improving? Is he on a lap or not? I don't know. Just gonna wait a second. And no, Ocon in the pit. Alex Albon is into Q3. What an amazing effort from Albon in the Williams. And here's a replay of him having a massive oversteer moment on the exit of turn 11. But he's into Q3. What an effort by him. And that is easily the best drive of the day so far. And only 0.7 of a second slower than Verstappen in the Red Bull after Q2. What an effort from Albon. And clearly Williams showing the incredible improvements they have made in 2023. And they are clearly on the way up in 2023. Anyway, Q2 is over and done with. And into the top 10. The final shootout is Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Nico Hülkenberg, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, and knockdown Q2, Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen, and Nick De Vries. And Q3 will be underway in probably about 3 to 4 minutes' time. Let me know, guys. Will Verstappen absolutely get pole position? Or will there be a surprise in this session coming up very soon? Also, let me know what you thought of some great performances there by Alex Albon and Nico Hülkenberg especially, getting their way into Q3. Brilliant effort from both of those drivers. By the way, cheers for 67 likes. If you haven't liked already, make sure to do so. And let's try and get, if we can, up to say 75, 80 likes by the end of this stream. That'd be great if we could do that. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, guys, for more content like this, because tomorrow I will be going live at 4 a.m. UK time for the race watch-along. Obviously, we're starting with a race preview for an hour and a half. Then at 5:30 until basically 8 a.m, we'll be doing the race watch-along. And the race starts at 6 a.m. UK time, same time qualifying has started this morning. And then, of course, I'll be doing a reaction with you guys to the Grand Prix itself. So, yeah, make sure to join me for that tomorrow. And, of course, the weekend review on Monday. But, yeah, the... what do you call it? The performances that really stood out there were, yeah, Hülkenberg and Albon. Hülkenberg, what a season he is having. He has easily been better, really, than Magnussen in qualifying so far this season. In the races, it's not been great for Hülkenberg so far, but yeah, brilliant effort from Hülkenberg. And Nico is now 3-0 on Magnussen in qualifying. What a comeback it's been for Hülkenberg. And yeah, like I said, Alex Albon, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And if he can even maybe do better than P10, that'd be great. But yeah, P10 is good enough. And with that Williams car being pretty good with its race pace, as we've seen so far this season, I think he's got a pretty good chance of finishing in the points. And maybe taking Williams back into 7th in the championship and maybe closing the gap to Alfa Romeo in 6th. Yeah, Williams, like I said, they are on the up in 2023. Brilliant from Albon. So happy for the guy. And yeah, Williams looking great, which is, you know, very good to see. But Q3 starts in 2 minutes and 20 seconds, guys. So we're not that far away, to be honest, from getting into Q3. And yeah, this is going to be an exciting end to the session. Even if it's not an exciting fight for pole, whoever comes after Verstappen, because Perez obviously is out and is going to be starting in 20th because of his poor mistake in Q1. Yeah, that fight after Verstappen is going to be very, very close and very exciting. And, you know, if a team like Aston Martin or Ferrari or even Mercedes, if they want to be on the podium tomorrow, then they've got to deliver really here in Q3. Because, I mean, Perez in the Red Bull will be very quick from the back, but I don't think Perez is going to be necessarily finishing in second tomorrow, because it is harder to overtake here, quite a bit harder to overtake here than it is in Jeddah. And obviously Perez not as good as Max. So yeah, I don't think Perez is just going to fly through and finish in second. I don't think it'll be quite as easy as that, to be honest. But also, I want to shout out Yuki Tsunoda. Been very good this season, Tsunoda. And yeah, P12, good effort, very good effort, considering AlphaTauri's struggles. And obviously AlphaTauri have brought upgrades this weekend. Maybe their upgrades are starting to work now, because 12th and 15th is quite a bit better than they had in the first two races. Obviously, they've had new upgrades to the floor area, quite a few new upgrades to the floor area. And maybe it is the reason why they got both cars into Q2 and in 12th and 15th place. But yeah, Tsunoda, good effort from him. I don't think really he could have done any better than that. As Q3 will be underway in about just over 15 seconds time. I will sync up the timer at the 11-minute mark. And yeah, reminder, the cars or the drivers in Q3 in this shootout are Verstappen, Alonso, Sainz, Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Stroll and Albon. As the session is underway, who will get pole position in Melbourne? Obviously, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who are in the shootout. They have had pole position at this track before. Max Verstappen has not. Not even Fernando Alonso has had pole position here. So not many people out there have sat on pole position at the Australian Grand Prix. Yeah, definitely watch out for Leclerc and Hamilton. Mercedes, though, I've got to say, have not been very quick in this session. They don't look good as I thought they would be. That's Leclerc asking, are we sure rain won't come earlier, right? And Ferrari says, we believe something to last for 3 to 4 minutes in terms of rain. So, hopefully for Ferrari, they don't get it wrong. And yeah, we're currently looking at, I think, Alonso. Now we're looking at some fans at the track. Yeah, all of them got jumpers on because it is pretty cold. I think even in the UK today, it's going to be just as warm, if not warmer, than it is in Melbourne, which is quite a turn up for the books, really, because normally it would be warmer in Melbourne than it is here in the UK. As Max Verstappen starts his first attempt at pole position and absolutely flew through turn 1. Brilliant from Verstappen. Now through turn 3, and you can tell that Red Bull now is at its absolute peak performance, and Verstappen giving it everything. And maybe his first run will be easily good enough. A 26.7 for the first sector. What does Alonso do? Well, it's 27.9, so Alonso clearly has either made a mistake or is doing a warm-up lap. So here comes Max Verstappen to the end of the middle sector. 44.3 so far. And yeah, lap record he has so far in this session, 1:17.0. How much faster can the world champion go? As he comes into the final 3 corners, car flown into turn 12. Ran all slightly wide, turn 13. Definitely dropped a tenth or two at that corner. But now comes to the line. What can Verstappen do? It is quite a slow lap time. It's a 1:17.5. That is quite a bit slower than Verstappen can go. So he's giving the others a bit of a chance, at the minute at least. So Max P1, Alonso P2, but Alonso has done a slow lap. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg into the penultimate corner. And, car all over the place. Rear end, really hard to control for Hülkenberg. But he will come to the line and go second on a 1:18.0, which is, I think, also for him, slower than he went in Q2. Maybe the rain is out there just starting to drop and cause lap times to go or be slower. But yeah, Verstappen here at the penultimate corner definitely lost himself, probably about 0.2 of a second at least at that corner. As lots of other drivers have set lap times so far, but none of them really competitive. Alonso, though, has done a purple first sector, not a purple middle sector, which is not a surprise. But what can he do for the final sector as Carlos Sainz does a purple middle sector briefly? And here comes the Spaniard. Can he put it on pole position? Yes, he can by almost 0.3 of a second. Fernando Alonso is on provisional pole with 7.5 minutes to go. Here comes Charles Leclerc, who goes second for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz now goes second, only a 10th down on Alonso. And George Russell now goes second. Lewis Hamilton is now on provisional pole position. Brilliant from Hamilton. And it is Hamilton first, Alonso second, Russell third. And then it is Sainz in fourth, Leclerc fifth, Verstappen sixth. And then Pierre Gasly in P7. Here comes Alex Albon to the line. What can he do? He goes P7 ahead of Gasly and Hülkenberg. What an effort that is. Max Verstappen, by the way, has improved his first sector, but not improved his middle sector, and he's only slightly up on Lewis Hamilton. This is a lot closer than I expected it to be. And can Verstappen, though, still get poles? He's right on the edge of the track on the exit of turn 11 through turn 12. Does he get turn 13 right this time? Yeah, quite a bit more. And this should be good enough for provisional pole position. To the line Verstappen comes. And it is by 0.009 of a second. Max Verstappen for now is on pole position in Melbourne. And here's a replay of Verstappen on the exit of the turn 9-10 chicane. Running slightly wide, but yeah, was all well and good. But how close is it up front? Verstappen on pole by 0.009. Rain in 4 minutes, Ferrari say. So they've got to get back out on the track as soon as they can, if that is true. But yeah, Verstappen 0.009 of a second clear. Hamilton second. Alonso just behind third. Russell fourth. And the two Ferraris fifth and sixth, with Alex Albon in P7 in the Williams. Incredible stuff. And Ferrari yet rushing to get the tyres on and get their cars out on the track, because that rain looks as though it is possibly coming to this track. But if you needed any proof that Lewis Hamilton around this track is a stunning driver, well, he showed you. Second place, and if he ends up there, then yeah, that is a brilliant effort from Lewis Hamilton. As Ferrari, I think, with at least one of their cars are back out on the track. Yep, Carlos Sainz is back out on track. Lance Stroll currently on track. That could be perfect for him. And he's currently on a flying lap. Not a good first sector, though. 0.2 of a second down. Verstappen on the radio saying his downshifts are getting worse as well. It's pretty shit. And Max is not happy. As here comes Lance to the middle sector. How far behind Verstappen is he? He is 0.2 of a second down as Gasly goes back up to 7th place. Stroll, though, could still get a decent position. And if he does get like a 4th or a 5th, if the rain then falls, I think Aston Martin will be pretty happy with that type of grid position. Here comes Stroll, though, into the final 3 corners, where the Aston Martin should be at its best. And yeah, that Aston Martin looks brilliant through the slow corner of turn 13. And Albon back up to 7th. Where does Stroll go? Only 7th. I mean, 0.3 off Verstappen. That's not bad, but yeah, 7th place. I thought he would have been a bit better than that. So, 3 minutes, 20 seconds to go here in Q3. And we only have 0.3 of a second covering the top 7. Who will grab pole position? Pole position, of course, is vital at this track, given the difficulties of overtaking. As here comes the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, I think it is. Don't think Sainz, though, is properly pushing on this lap. It doesn't look as though he is. It just doesn't look like he's properly pushing as hard as he can. Leclerc, though, looks as though he's really pushing, and Sainz lets him go. And, well, I guess we'll see what Leclerc's doing for the first sector. Oh, slight bit of hesitation turning in. I thought he was going to go straight on there, but he didn't. And Leclerc, yep, has done an improved first sector. What is his middle sector like, though? Here he comes. And it's not good enough. And yeah, that little moment at turn 6, I think it was, or turn 7. A big issue for Leclerc as he comes through turn 11. Now through turn 12. Ferrari looked very good through there. Now into the slow corner of 13. Very good through there. And now round the final corner. Can Leclerc improve on 6th place? To the line he comes. And he goes 5th. And does a purple final sector. So there is clearly still grip out there to be found. And if Carlos Sainz can find it, then maybe Ferrari can still get a decent position. Pierre Gasly has not improved his first 2 sectors and is currently in 9th place. Can he improve still his final sector and overall lap? To the line he comes. No. And if the rain does start to fall, then Gasly is in big trouble. And Hülkenberg does improve his lap but stays in P10. Alex Albon currently in 8th place. Wow. What a session this has been. As Lewis Hamilton has been held up a bit by Hülkenberg. And yeah, not great there from the Haas, gotta say. As Verstappen about to complete what could be his final run in qualifying. He's done a purple first sector, an improved middle sector. Alonso also on a very good lap. What can Verstappen do, though? It's a 1:16.7, half a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Surely nobody can compete with that. Here comes Lance Stroll, who goes 4th. Brilliant improvement from the Canadian. Can Alonso improve on 3rd? To the line he comes. And he does go up to 2nd. Here comes George Russell, though, through. Now into the final corner. Carlos Sainz goes up to 3rd in the Ferrari. Russell to the line. 2nd for him, ahead of Alonso. And where does Lewis Hamilton go? 3rd. So George Russell, for the 3rd race in a row, out-qualifies his teammate Lewis Hamilton. And Mercedes qualify 2nd and 3rd. Nobody thought that was going to happen today. but it's Max Verstappen's day and Red Bull's day. Their first pole position in Melbourne since 2013, 10 years ago, where that day they locked out the front row. And it is Max Verstappen's first pole position at the Australian Grand Prix. And let me go through your final order and your starting grid. The Australian Grand Prix. Verstappen on pole, Russell second, Hamilton third, Alonso fourth, Sainz fifth, Stroll sixth, Leclerc seventh, Ferrari, very poor session for them. And they were only, 0.3 of a second quicker than Alex Albon in the bloody Williams. Ferrari have fallen off big time. And yeah, Alex Albon, 8th on the grid and only 0.8 off pole. He is easily driver of the day. I don't care what anyone says. Alex Albon is driver of the day. What an amazing effort from him. Gasly 9th, Hulkenberg 10th, and then the rest of the field, Ocon, Tsunoda, Norris, Magnussen, De Vries, Piastri, Zhou, Sargent, Bottas, and Sergio Perez and the other Red Bull will start at the very back. But it is Max Verstappen on pole by about 1/4 of a second from Russell in second and Lewis Hamilton in third. Wow, what a qualifying that was. And obviously, I'll be sticking around for another, say, 20 to 30 minutes to react with you guys to what has happened in qualifying today. Before I do that, let me just post a link of the stream back out a couple of times. But let me know, guys, in the chat, what do you think of qualifying? And I will obviously set up a poll in a moment to ask you guys who you think driver of the day was. Come join us here to react to a surprising qualifying in Australia. And I'll just quickly post it out on Twitter as well. And then we will get going with the reaction. But yeah, what a session that was. That was way more competitive and topsy-turvy than I expected it to be. And at least in qualifying, Red Bull, you know, they're still the best team, but they are not as quick in qualifying as maybe some people think they ought to be going into a weekend. Obviously, in the race, they are so much better. But yeah, in qualifying, they are still the best team, but they're not that far ahead. And I've got to say, this has surely got to be big encouragement for Mercedes-Benz. Second and third, only 1/4 of a second off pole, and you know the car is in the state it is. So yeah, Mercedes are not in a bad position at all, and if they can improve that car by quite a bit, then maybe they can start to fight with Red Bull in 2023 very soon. Obviously, no upgrades coming to the Mercedes until the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. Anyway, hold on. Come join us here to react to a surprising qualifying in Australia. And let me just quickly do a couple hashtags, and then I'll do the poll in the chat. So let me just quickly do this. And right, there you go. And that should be good enough. And hopefully we'll get some more people coming along to react to this brilliant qualifying session. And yeah, definitely, I think you guys will be happy, especially if you're in Europe, that you woke up for this session. Anyway, let me just quickly do a poll of who do you think was driver of the day today in qualifying? Who do you think was driver of the day in qualifying? And the options I will go for will be Verstappen, Russell, Albon, And I'll put Hulkenberg in there as well, because I think he did really well, to be honest, as well. So let me know who was driver of the day in qualifying today. Verstappen, Russell, Albon, or Hulkenberg. For me, it is easily Alex Albon. What an effort from him. 8th place. How? How did he qualify in 8th place? And like I said, he was only 0.8 of a second off pole position. An amazing effort. And Williams, they have got a good car. There is no doubt about it. That car is really a strong midfield car. And, you know, with the good race pace we've seen from Williams as of late, I fancy Albon to score points tomorrow. I think he'll be in a great position in the Williams, as long as he doesn't have a terrible start or anything like that. Obviously, the brake issues he had in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I guess I'll quickly, just for myself, go through all the teams and give my quick thoughts. Obviously, I'll give more in detail thoughts in the race preview tomorrow. But yeah, Red Bull, even though they got pole, still good. Still not a good enough day for them, because they should have had, really, the front row, I think. They were definitely still the quickest team out there. And yes, Sergio Perez, very poor mistake at turn 3. You know, going way too deep, way too quick into the corner, and then beaching his car in the gravel. But yeah, Verstappen still did a great job. Congratulations to him. And yeah, Max, as long as he gets away okay, he should win the race pretty easily from the rest of the field. Ferrari, very poor day. 5th and 7th, just horrendous. And yeah, I'm going to just say it now, they have got absolutely no chance of finishing on the podium, because if they're not in qualifying as quick as Aston Martin or Mercedes, they're definitely not going to be as quick as them in the race. So yeah, very poor effort from them. And given their race pace issues, they might be racing with Williams and Alpine in the race, to be honest. So yeah, just shocking from the Ferrari team. Mercedes, what an effort from them. 2nd and 3rd. Russell out-qualifying Hamilton for the 3rd race in a row. Brilliant from him. And really, since his win in Brazil at the end of last season, he has really improved and stepped up once again, has George. Great job, by the way, by Lewis Hamilton as well. He was very good in Q3. And I think even though Hamilton was out-qualified, I think he will be pleased that, you know, Mercedes are in the position they're in, and knows that there's plenty, of course, to fight for tomorrow. But yeah, Mercedes, they are in pole position, I guess, for the fight for the podium, and the rest of the podium after Verstappen. Of course, Perez, he will come through the field. I still think Perez is going to have a pretty tricky time finishing on the podium, because obviously he's not as good as Verstappen. And this, you know, his progress through the field is not going to be as quick as what Max had in Saudi Arabia. But also, it is harder, quite a bit harder, to overtake here. So, yeah, Mercedes are in a great position for a podium, and could possibly tomorrow, by the end of the race, be 2nd in the championship, which would be a great effort from them, considering the struggles with their car. Aston Martin, in the end, I mean, 4th and 6th is not a bad result, but given that Perez obviously was out in Q1, and obviously Ferrari had a poor session in Q3, really Alonso needed to be on the front row. But in the end, Mercedes were just too quick. I did think Mercedes would be, in the end, too quick compared to the Aston Martin team. But yeah, Alonso really had to get on the front row there, I think. Alonso, though, will be super quick tomorrow, so it's going to be a great fight with, you know, Alonso, Hamilton, Russell for the podium positions. Lance Stroll, good effort from him. Wasn't that much slower than Alonso. I think only a 10th or 2 slower, so a great effort by him. And splitting the Ferraris is a good effort. And I think given Ferrari's bad race pace, Lance should be finishing ahead of the 2 Ferraris for sure, and in 5th or 6th place. Obviously, it does depend on what Sergio Perez can do from the back of the field. What the other teams we need to go through? Obviously, Alpine, Gasly, 9th, Ocon, 11th. Not the worst result in the world, but yeah, their pace today just not good enough, I'm afraid. They should have been really, 8th and 9th in qualifying, like I predicted them to be. But yeah, they just weren't, in the end, that quick, and just failed, really, to deliver. And this is kind of like what I'm talking about, or what I was talking about in the build-up to qualifying, which was, they've got two good drivers in their car, but Ocon and Gasly, they're both midfield drivers. They haven't got like a proper front-running driver like they had last season with Alonso in that car that can get the maximum potential out of the car, during a weekend. And I think today is an example of it. I think the Alpine is, quicker than the Williams today. I just think the two drivers not doing a good enough job, really, in the Alpine. Albon, though, obviously, we'll get on to him in a moment. An amazing job by him. McLaren, poor, 13th and 16th. That's just, poor, and I don't see them scoring points. They really had to deliver in qualifying, I think, for them to be scoring points tomorrow. Alfa Romeo, worst team, quite comfortably the worst team, I think, here. Haas F1, obviously very good for Hulkenberg. Great to see him in the top 10 again. Maybe could have done a bit better than 10th, but good effort anyway. Magnussen needs to really rethink what's going on in qualifying, because 3-0 it is for Hulkenberg over Magnussen in qualifying, and 14th is just not good enough for Kevin, I'm afraid. So not good enough there, but still Haas in the top 10, that's still good enough. And then AlphaTauri, good effort. Car does look a bit better, so maybe that those upgrades have definitely, or maybe they have improved the car. I hope they have, because the start to the season for them has not been really that good. And Williams, what an amazing effort. Obviously, Logan Sargent didn't quite get it together in Q1, but Alex Albon, driver of the day. I knew the Williams was going to be quick to a certain extent today, but I did not think it would be quick enough for Q3. And he is, without a doubt, Albon, the driver of the day. There is no doubt in my mind about that. And what a race we are in for tomorrow. Very mixed up grid. And it's going to be definitely a competitive race tomorrow in Melbourne. But let me read what you guys have to say. Astro Stevo's saying, Albon, my choice for driver of the day. But Piastri wishes he stayed with Alpine. Well, you say that, but I think McLaren will improve quite a bit once they get that upgrade on that car at Baku. And I don't think McLaren, to be honest, are that much worse than Alpine at the minute. Ferrari with engines turned to maximum did that. Very poor by the Ferrari team. 5th and 7th. And like I said, with their poor race pace, they might be fighting with Albon, Gasly, Hulkenberg in the race rather than, Mercedes and Aston Martin. Just horrendous from them. I don't know why Charles Leclerc was so slow today. He was pretty much the whole session slower than Carlos Sainz. I mean, good effort from Sainz. Did the best he could, but we know Leclerc's capable of more. So, not good enough by the Monegasque. But overall from Ferrari, just simply not good enough. And they, like I said, they're not going to be on the podium tomorrow. Absolutely no chance of that. Let me find other comments here if I can. Lap 1, watch out. It's going to be an interesting lap 1. Crystal Racing says, as a Gasly fan, I'm glad Piastri chose McLaren. Mercedes team of the day, in my opinion, did not expect P2, P3. In terms of executing a result, I know Albon obviously, did great for Williams, but I think that's more down to Alex rather than the team. Mercedes have brilliantly executed, that Q3 session. And 2nd and 3rd on the grid is just brilliant for them. And maybe they'll get that first podium of the season tomorrow. We'll see, of course, tomorrow morning. Labgura says, Perez, what the fuck? Let's just see what he does from last. I reckon on this track, P5. Yeah, I reckon P5-ish, something like that is possible. I don't think Perez, unless he gets a fortunate safety car, virtual safety car at the right time, I don't think Perez will be on the podium tomorrow because, I don't know, I just don't think Checo's the type of driver to just fly through the field like Max does. And it is harder to overtake here. And also, Red Bull don't look to be as quick compared to the rest as they were expected to be this weekend. I mean, they're still going to win the race tomorrow. They still have the best car. There's no doubt about that, but they're not as quick compared to the rest as they were previously. There is zero doubt about that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Perez does. I think once he gets up to say Albon, Gasly, I think that'll be a bit tough because the Williams and Alpine pretty fast down the straights. So, Perez will need to be super quick, really, in and hold on, let me just put this certain user in timeout for repeating the same message about a million times. That is definitely not what you're allowed to do in my chat. Yeah, Perez, I don't think it's going to fly through the field. I think it's going to be a bit tougher for him than people are probably thinking already. Crystal Racing says, imagine an elite qualifier in that Aston. Yeah, I mean, if they had a Leclerc, Norris type driver, then yeah, I think, Aston Martin would have had probably better results in qualifying at least. But at the end of the day, points are scored in the race, so that's what matters. And Fernando, there is a pretty decent chance that he makes progress from, there's a decent chance he makes, good progress from 4th. I'm not saying he will beat the two Mercedes, but yeah, I think there is a decent chance of him being able to. He should be right on the pace of the two Mercedes for sure in the race. Right, I think I'll read out a few more comments and then we'll come to the end of this stream. Roy says, I guess Perez tend to bend under pressure. Yeah, well, Perez, I think we all know Perez is not in a championship fight. So, yeah, he just isn't good enough. Let's try and find some other comments if I can. Through the chat, Crystal Racing says Albon's driver of the day. And let's find some other comments if I can, maybe. Mercedes actually big-brained strategy, says Hura, if I pronounce that correctly. Henry says, although Alonso's 4th place tomorrow, Aston Martin car are both prevails, he says. I think I know what you mean by that. And yeah, I think Aston Martin will be at least on the pace of Mercedes, but quite possibly quicker. But the issue for Aston Martin is going to be, again, that lack of straight line speed. So they won't be able to necessarily just, just easily overtake, to be honest. Right. Just trying to see if there's any news on Twitter I can bring you guys quickly. Nope. Manos Men says Mercedes will be very competitive tomorrow. To be honest, I hope so, because that would be very good to see. And like I said, if they can improve that car by a few tenths of a second, by the time we get to Imola, where they get some upgrades on the car, maybe Mercedes can start to fight with Red Bull properly. race by race. So, let's not count out or just discount the entire season yet. Because teams like Mercedes, Aston Martin, and Ferrari, I think have still got a bit to improve this season. So, yeah, don't quite give up on this season because it's going to get more competitive and more exciting. Especially with Red Bull not really being allowed to develop their car that much. Red Bull are only going to bring really 2 big upgrades. Say, one at the, Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix or Spanish Grand Prix, and then probably their final big upgrade will be either at the British Grand Prix or just before the summer break. And then Red Bull have to just go to the rest of the season without really upgrading the car, when Mercedes will be able to keep developing a bit longer than Red Bull. And obviously they've got a bit more improvements to find. Aston Martin with the ATR, the allowed, wind tunnel time, and, lower down teams in the championship being allowed extra time. Aston Martin, until the end of June, are allowed, I think, 100 more wind tunnel runs at least than Red Bull. So Aston Martin, they will make lots of progress if they can get their upgrades right. And Ferrari are rumoured to be bringing quite a few new upgrades to their home race of Imola as well. So, yeah. Don't discount this season. There's definitely, still quite a bit of improvements to come. And of course, let's not forget to mention McLaren, who, they're bringing quite a few upgrades to Baku and have come out and said they're bringing basically a B-spec car, I think right before the summer break, probably at Hungary or something like that. So McLaren, they will improve as well. And maybe towards the end of the season, we can get back more so to, the field being closely separated. But guys, that is it for my qualifying watch along. Thank you guys so much for coming along, whether you've been watching, early in the morning along with me, or, it's been a difficult time for you. Thank you so much for coming along. Really appreciate it. And a quick reminder again of what the plan is for the rest of the weekend. I will be live tomorrow at 4 a.m. UK time for the race watch along. We'll start with the race preview until 5:30 a.m. Race starts at 6 a.m. UK time. And then as soon as the race finishes, I'll do a 30 to 45 minute reaction with you guys to the events of said race. And then on Monday evening at 8 p.m. UK time, I will do a review of the big talking points from the Australian Grand Prix weekend. So don't forget to come along to all of that. Let me get rid of that timer quickly. Obviously, session is over. But yeah, cheers for coming along, guys. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Don't forget to smash the like button on your way out if you haven't already. We're on 88 likes, I think, or something like that. Let's try and get up to 100 likes by the time the stream ends. That'd be great if we can. And as well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 to keep up with the content on this channel. And don't forget to join our Discord server, link below in the description for more content like this. But guys, until my race watch along stream again, starting at 4 a.m. UK time tomorrow, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.